So today I want to talk a little about something that I hear probably more often than anything else, which is how do I get more time? And while plenty of research is being done on life extension, that's not what I'm talking about. It's actually more about how do I get more with the time that I have, right? It takes only a few minutes to realize how much time people are spending on things that aren't important to them and aren't even important in the big picture. And so one of the most powerful tools that we have is learning how to say no. And it's also one of the hardest things for us to do. It turns out that we're social beings, we're mammals, we like to connect with each other, and saying no feels harsh. It feels dangerous. It feels like we might cut off a relationship with someone who's important to us, that we might piss off our boss, right? So there's a lot of danger in saying no. And so it's really important to have a way to think about it that makes it easier to set these really important boundaries, but also maintain the relationships. Because it's so hard to say no, we tend to do three things that don't work out particularly well. And those are to accommodate, avoid, or attack. So either we accommodate. To avoid saying no, we just say yes, and all of a sudden our schedule is full of all sorts of things we don't want to be doing. Another way that we respond is by avoiding. Maybe if I don't talk to this person for a little while, this will just go away. Well, ultimately, this does the same kind of damage to relationships that we talked about earlier. And the last of these is to attack. And this is where we're trying to say no. We realize it's important to say no, but we're still learning the skills of saying no. And so we end up being too aggressive, too forward, too direct. And ultimately, this does, again, similar damage to the relationship because we're not leaving any room in that for where is the yes to the relationship. And so that brings us to William Ury's method. So William Ury is a part of the Harvard Negotiation Project and wrote a famous book called Getting to Yes about negotiation. He also wrote a book about saying no because he realized that ultimately that was as or more important than the previous work that he'd done. And in that he describes a very simple method called yes, no, yes. Yes to me and my values, no to this, and yes to us. So yes to my values, no to this, and yes to us. And so what this does is it addresses that problem we talked about earlier, right? It gives the other person we're engaging with a sense that we care about them in this third step about talking about us. It gives them a sense of why we're saying no, and it gives us a sense of why we're saying no. What's the yes? What do we care about so much that we're going to trade off this thing for something that we care about more? And then the no is just a simple no to this particular thing, this one thing in time, this one moment. So yes, no, yes. Let me just give you a simple example. Moving my business forward with my talk on Monday is really important to me. So I'm going to make sure I get plenty of practice time and sleep. So no, I can't throw my suit in the Jeep and drive with you to Vegas tonight. And spending time with you is important to me. Why don't we schedule some time this next week and make sure that we're getting to see each other more often? So there's a great example of yes, no, yes, right? Yes to my values, no to this particular thing, this trip to Vegas, and yes to our relationship going forward, right? And that could be yes to a commitment to this project or this team or this company, right? One last thing I want to add here is that clearly it's really important to know what our yeses are. So I'll talk about this more in another video, but in order for us to start with a yes to our own values and the things that are important to us, we have to know what those are. Something to think about. Now I want to briefly talk about ways to approach this so that you can more effectively try out this technique. The first would be to literally write down this whole process, because the words you use when you're actually talking to them might not be exactly this structure, but it's really helpful when you're starting out to literally write it out. Yes, what is important to me? What is valuable to me? The first yes. No, what is this thing, this one thing that I am not going to do, right? And then thirdly, yes, what is it about the bigger picture, this relationship that we have that is important, and how is that reflected in this last yes? So just making those 1, 2, 3 steps, writing them out. And then secondly, going ahead and refusing to answer in the moment. So a lot of the time when we're sitting right across from someone and they're really excited about their project, or they're really desperately needing help in this moment, it's really hard to not get overwhelmed by that and want to help them out immediately. And so sometimes the best practice is to just make a practice, try this for a day, try this for a week, where you don't commit to anything without giving yourself an hour or even 24 hours. So what that might look like is you say, for this next day, I am not going to say yes, I'm not going to commit to anything, and I can also might not say no to anything, right, for an entire day. And every time someone comes to me with a project and an offer and an idea, I'm going to tell them that I'm not getting back to them until tomorrow. Now, this is also potentially an opportunity to try the very same technique. So in that moment, you might find yourself saying, yes, I really want to make sure that if I make a commitment to you, that I know I can follow through on it. So no, I'm not going to give you an answer right now. But yes, I know your time is important and that maybe even urgent right now. So I'm going to make sure that I get back to you by 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. And then lastly, there's another technique. If they're really coming at you and they're really coming at you strong, and it really feels overwhelming to try and say no to them in this situation, I'll talk about another technique in a different video that will deal with people who aren't willing to take no for an answer. So hope this was helpful. Once again, very simply, if you just remember this little sequence and take a few minutes just to sit down and think out a couple situations you're going through right now. Yes to me and my values, no to this, yes to us. And I'll see you next time.